Hello and welcome to How to Love Your Body. I am Jenna. This is Lauren.
Hello.
And we're here today to talk about the next two principles in the book, Intuitive Eating. So if you have not watched the last couple episodes, we have been talking about the principles up till now. We're now on principle 6. So if you really want an in-depth discovery of the Intuitive Eating book and the Intuitive Eating principles, definitely go check those out.
How to love your body.
But we will just kick it off right now with principle 6 called
Here we
Feel Your
go.
Fullness. Okay, so the summary is listen for the body signals that tell you that you are no longer hungry. Observe the signs that show that you're comfortably full. Pause in the middle of eating and ask yourself how the food tastes and what your current hunger level is. And I think just so that's a little note is like food taste for me, that is a huge marker for me of like, this isn't that good, or oh my God, I'm so hungry. And this is like exactly what I need right now. I really, really experience that with cheese. I don't know why, but I'll have like the same cheese and I'll eat it and it tastes so rich and creamy and so good. And like, oh, it's so amazing. Like I could cut a big chunk off and eat it. And another time I'll eat the same cheese and I'm like, this tastes so chalky and like, eh. And it's like, it's depending on when my body wants it, how hungry I am. And I just find that really interesting that your body gives us so many different signals about fullness or about if a food is like a good fit at that moment or not for you. And it's not just like, oh, my stomach is physically full. It might be different things like the taste thing. So, like, what is the difference between dieting and this feeling your fullness? So it says diet plans using regular food typically offer small portions at meals. This encourages you to eat while you can. So you have that idea of like, okay, it's mealtime and this is all I'm getting. So I better eat all of it. I'm not even going to try to tune in because you're probably starving. And so you gobble it all up and you really get out of touch with both hunger signals and fullness signals. So it's going to be a new skill to learn if you're just getting off the diet train. It says, who would leave any morsel of food when quantities are meager? So even if it's gross, even if it's not tasting good, even if it's not what you want, you are going to gobble it up and not think about anything else other than this is my limited food supply. I better eat it now while I can. And that's what we're really trying to get out of with intuitive eating. And you want to get more into, oh, food is abundant, as we've talked about in the previous principles. Food is abundant. Now, what do I actually want? How much do I want? Am I feeling full now? How is this tasting? It leaves so much more room for like experimenting, for curiosity, for really exploring what your body needs, because you don't have that urge of like, this is the only food I get and this is the only time I can eat, so I'm going to scarf it all down. And so that is what we really want to work on in this stage. So it says the problem is the inability to recognize comfortable satiety or to respect fullness. So with dieting, you're going to be out of tune with fullness and hunger. And I think some people might think like, that makes no sense. Like I know when I'm full or I overeat and I'm so full and I can't control it. I get too full. It's like, well, that's actually from restriction, not from allowing. So I think some people think when I'm allowing the food, I eat so much, I get too full, so I should probably restrict it or try to eat less, consciously try to eat less. That is not what we recommend because that's what's getting us to that point of eating so much while it's available. So it says, how can you or any dieter expect to leave food on your plate if you believe that you won't be able to eat that particular food or meal again? So this is kind of another angle of that, which is, okay, maybe you have an abundance of food and you're eating enough, but there's special foods that you only eat sometimes. You're going to have that same reaction of, God, eat it now while I can. And that's kind of that Last Supper feeling. Or that clean plate club pattern of I just scarf it all down because who knows when I'll be able to eat this again.
Yeah, I think that's a really big thing to just point out because I do know that probably a lot of people that came from dieting in the past and dieting for 10 to 30 plus years probably have learned about the Clean Plate Club or were maybe, shamed as a kid or told as a kid, you better finish your plate, or wherever that comes from. I think it's so important to just remind people of body autonomy, and like, you don't have to finish your plate. And it's not like, oh, but I really like it, so I want to have more of it. You can have it again in 10 minutes, in an hour, put it away for leftovers. It's not about like, you can't have more of it. It's if your body is done and full, you can respect that and still have the delicious food on your plate that you, because sometimes I get it. Sometimes you're like, oh, I wish I was like more hungry because I want to eat more of this. But then, in my opinion, it's not worth it to me to continue. I mean, sometimes, like, there's so many moving parts to intuitive eating. It's like you got to really watch what you say, because yes, of course it's okay to feel full and be full, but this is more of like talking about feel your fullness, so you're not just like overly uncomfortable throughout the day every single day. Of course, there's going to be times where you eat and you had more than your body maybe was asking you for, and it's totally okay to be full. And there's other times where you just like eat, feel your fullness, and move on. But just remember, whenever there is something and you are starting to feel full, I think the best thing to tell yourself is, oh, I'm starting to feel full. I absolutely can have this again later, even later in the same day, not even like, well, I got to wait till tomorrow, or this is my weekly treat, which is not, that's a very diety language. It's just knowing that you can have more. I think that will really help the mindset.
Definitely. And then, so part of this is they talk about conscious eating. So it says the initial step away from the blind autopilot eating mode is conscious eating. So you're just observing, neutrally observing. That's a really important word. You're not judging your eating. You're just like, oh, wait, how do I eat? What are my habits? How does this taste? There's no judgment on it. Like Lauren said, if you overeat and you get really full and you're like, ugh, that didn't feel good, there's no judgment on that. It's just something that happened and now you happen to not feel good.
And it's information for you.
Yeah, then you can tune in later. And I also think another nuance I would add into this that's not in here, it's sometimes eating the food's going to be more important to you, and sometimes feeling good is going to be more important to you. That might change meal to meal. That might change in phases of life. Like right now, I haven't been feeling great physically and I'm kind of down mentally. So right now, I find I'm consciously a little bit more aware of like if I take a big chunk of chocolate to eat after dinner and I'm eating it and I'm like, this isn't even that good and I feel kind of I will go put some back. Whereas other times, maybe I'm like, I don't really care. I'm feeling good. It's fine. I'm just going to eat this. And I eat it, and neither is good or bad. But for me, I find sometimes I'm like, I really want to try to feel my best physically because I'm kind of feeling blah. And then other times when I don't really care, I will be more lenient. It's not a great word, but I will be more carefree about, this isn't tasting as good, but there's only a few squares left. I'll just shove them in. Like it's, and both are fine. But it's important to realize that there's no judgment in this, and it can change day to day, month to month, phase to phase of your life. And that's fine. So another thing they have in this section is the fullness discovery scale. So this is talking about like, well, what's my rating on my fullness? And obviously that's subjective. And this is something that can be a slippery slope, because like in the book, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the bit of a graph and like for charting and tracking. I personally don't recommend any tracking of any type with intuitive eating because it's so like, it's such an echo of our dieting tracking. And so for me, I don't recommend that to clients. I don't think we should be tracking even like, oh, what time this is time, food, fullness rating. Like, I just think it's a bit too trying to control it or figure it out.
The only thing to record maybe is like thoughts and feelings.
Right. Like journaling.
That would be, AKA journaling.
Yeah, I'm not a big chart fan, especially for this work, because that gets a little too like trying to stay in the lines, trying to follow the rules. And that's not what this work is about. It's more about self-exploration and figuring it out. So here's just a few tools they give about increasing consciousness when eating. You can eat without distractions. We've talked about this before. We do recommend doing it once or twice, but that's definitely not how I live my life. I don't sit in a quiet room and eat. by myself. Like, boring. If I'm eating, it's usually like, oh, I'm having a break from work, or the kids are finally down and I'm having my lunch while they're napping. Like, I want to enjoy it. I don't want to sit there and have it be all serious and sitting in silence. So I'm usually watching TV on the couch, especially for lunchtime. And I enjoy that. That's much more fun for me. And my priority with eating is I want it to be enjoyable. And so, yes, you try it without distractions, just so you can taste the food, see what you're doing, see what your thoughts are, and be a bit more conscious just to learn about yourself. But you don't need to be doing that at every meal, because that just feels a little bit controlling to me as well. And then it says, reinforce your conscious decision to stop. Many of our clients have found that when they decide to stop eating because they've reached the last bite threshold, so that kind of moment of like, oh, I'm feeling pretty full, I'm going to have a couple more bites. And I do that too. I'll be like, I could stop right now, but to feel super done and satisfied and like, good, I'm going to take a few more bites. And then you're
you want to know that you're done.
Yeah,
like,
now I'm
you don't
really
want to be, you got to like have that choice of like, I have the bite and now I'm choosing to be done. You don't want it to be like, oh man, I wish I knew that was my last bite. Like,
exactly. Yeah. And then they say it's helpful to do something to make it a conscious act, such as gently nudging the plate forward or putting utensils down. And then says this simply reminds them of their decision. I don't know if I love that as like a tool, but I do find I do that. Like particularly like the other night, I like opened a bag of chips and I was on the couch with the whole bag. And when I was done, I did find I like folded it in half and I was lazy to go put it away. So I did put it like kind of, I didn't like leave it right beside me open, because it's like, that's just
it's like you're done. You
yeah,
gotta
I'm done.
You gotta complete it.
And I knew I was done. It was just like a subconscious thing where I did fold it up and kind of put it a little bit away from me because I was done. Not in a like, oh, I gotta put this away. So I stopped myself. It was just like, it's just a human kind of thing to do.
It was a natural way.
Yeah.
I have a tool. I mean, it's really helpful and it's like so quick and not like a actual like let's do, well, you are doing something, but something that I really like to do myself when I'm eating, just to check. It's more of just a check-in, and we say it to our clients all the time, and we talk about it probably in all our courses, and it's the power in the pause. And it's not like, let me like schedule pauses while I'm eating and write down feelings. It's like, as you're eating, just give yourself the quick pause of like, you don't have to put everything down and do like a big elaborate thing. Just stop for a second and just ask yourself how you're feeling. And it's really just that quick, like power in the pause, what's going on. And what I like to do is when I do take that little pause to check in with like, how is my fullness? And this is really not like, I'm not talking to myself like that. It's just like it's a natural thing that I do, that when I look back on how I eat, this is what I do. So it's not like, okay, Lauren, it's time for your pause. Okay, how is your fullness? No, it's just like an ongoing cycle of pause. And then I check in like, how do I feel? Oh, I think I can keep eating. I'm still hungry. Or, oh, I'm kind of getting kind of full. I like those few more bites. Or I also imagine myself, I see my plate. I imagine myself continuing to eat it and how it would feel. I imagine myself taking another bite. And if it feels good to me, I continue. If I'm like, oh yeah, I can tell that I'm done. Let me take another bite and complete. And like that, when I'm describing it, it sounds like, oh, there's a lot of steps to that. But that's a natural process that can happen pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So I think the pause is where it all begins. Mm-hmm. And then you can ask yourself questions about what's going on in your body and if you want to continue to move forward. And reminder, the pause is not to get you to stop eating at all. There's no problem if you continue to eat or not. It's just a simple check-in that's not like, let's log all these things with my little chart. It's like just a quick, let's do this on the go.
Yeah, it's a non-judgmental thing for sure. And then this is a kind of a good one. I do like this. Defend yourself from obligatory eating. This usually means practicing saying no, thank you. And I agree with that for sure, because there are so many instances where you're like, I should want that food. Or like I was out with some friends the other night and it's like, we went to this kind of, I don't even know how to describe, it wasn't a play. It was like an immersive thing. And you're making cocktails and it's like this Alice in Wonderland thing. And there was actors around. I don't know. It was weird, but it was fun. And they made cocktails and they weren't that good. Like I didn't really like them. And it's like, well, I'm here at this thing. I should just drink it. It's like we had a few cocktails before we went. That was enough. And I just didn't drink them. And it was more of a like, no, thank you, because it doesn't taste very good and it's not going to make me feel good. So I'm just not going to have anything. And it did feel weird because you're there, but I still enjoyed the evening and it was still fun. But I was able to go like, no, thank you. And so that can help you feel good, because then at the end of the night, I'm not like, ugh, I drank those two disgusting drinks and now I feel like crap. Because it doesn't feel like, even though you're not judgmental of eating or drinking in this work, you can still kind of feel like that wasn't even worth it. That wasn't even good. And now I feel like crap. Like that's just a human thing that's like, you don't want to do that because it doesn't feel very good.
And maybe it's like the wrong cocktail. So I know maybe at this place there wasn't an option to go get another one, but it's like, oh, I'm not going to get the one they're giving out. Let me go get the one that feels good to me. Or like one time I was offered a freshly baked cookie out of the oven. I just had dinner. Yeah, it smelled good. It looked good. I didn't, it wasn't going to feel good. So I said, oh, no, thanks. And in that moment, I was like, oh, they're going to think that like I'm the undiet, like coach, intuitive eating counselor. I should be eating the cookie. But I was like, no, this is part of it. I can say no to the cookie. And then I brought it home and had like, you know, a handful for at my house because my friend made these freshly baked cookies. So I really do think that there's so much learning in saying no, not because it's like, oh, I'm going to practice saying no, even though I really want it. It's actually saying no when your body is saying no.
Desire, yeah.
Exactly.
The fullness factors is the kind of the next area. And these are kind of the fullness factors. So the amount of time that has passed since the last time you ate, not like, oh, it's been this many hours, so now I'm going to eat, but more so like, yeah, some foods are going to keep you fuller longer. Some foods sometimes you're going to eat and you're going to get hungry after an hour and you're like, what? That's weird. But it's like, that's not really the point. Is you just need to eat when you're hungry. You might get quite full. And then like, I know for me, when I get really full, I'm kind of like, as long as my stomach's not like hurting and I feel horrible, but I get quite full and I'm like, oh, cool. Now I don't need to worry about food for a while because it's annoying to think about food all day. But some people might think, oh, I'm so full. And then you have this connotation with, I'm going to gain weight. I ate too much. This is so bad. It's like, well, now you're just going to be probably going to be fuller longer. So don't worry about it. It all evens out. Your body is very smart. If you give it a lot of food now, you'll probably eat less later. If you don't give it much food now, you're going to want to eat more later. Like your body is very smart. It's going to even it all out. So not to say like, oh, don't worry, you'll eat less. If you eat lots now, you'll eat less later. So it's the calculation is good. No, but that is just kind of how food works. You don't need to worry so much about each eating experience needs to be perfectly satisfied, but not too full. And you got to eat when you're hungry. You got to, it's like, just let your body flow and it'll even out over time just because of biology. A few other things is the kind of food you eat. So certain foods you're going to feel fuller longer. The amount of food you eat, your initial hunger level. So if you start eating when you're starving, yes, you will likely need to eat more than if you start when you're like, yeah, I'm kind of hungry. I could have something. And then social influence. So studies have shown that the more people gathered at a meal, the more people tend to eat. Eating with others increases the duration of the meal. Eating more on weekends is usually due to being around people. I don't really agree with that because if you're a dieter, cheat meals. It says dieters, however, have been shown to eat less when they know someone is watching them. So that's really interesting. But I think the key is to let social influence kind of guide you a little bit. Because yeah, if I go with my friends for pizza and wine, I will probably eat more than if I was eating pizza at home. Because maybe I'm having more fun. I would probably plan for it a little more. And I don't want to be full when I go. I want to be hungry. So that might happen. But also, I do think once you get really in tune with your body, these outside influences do not affect you as much. Like you're just able to eat as much as you want and whatever you want. Yeah. And if someone's continuing to eat, but you're full, you're not consciously aware of it. You just stop eating.
Like we don't always eat out. And so when you eat out, somebody is cooking your meal and maybe you're having like chips on the table or bread on the table, but I still feel like it might be a little, I don't know. I still have to think about that, what's said, because I just feel like that's not, I don't have an experience where it's like, oh, it's the weekend, I'm going out with friends, therefore I'm probably going to eat a lot more. I'm just going to listen to my body. I will eat whatever we eat, and it will still, and I will still continue to stop when my body's like, no
Mhm.
more, or that doesn't feel good. So I think that's more of like a diet mentality.
Yeah, I
Like
think
I
so
think
too.
in
And I might eat more if it's like, oh, this is so good. And then I have like kind of a boring meal at home, like for dinner, because it's
yeah,
like,
like maybe it's
oh,
like I never get like
yeah,
I don't go out every night to this restaurant that I love.
yeah,
Kind of like when you get your favorite pizza. Sometimes
yeah,
you can eat the whole thing because it's your favorite pizza, but you've said other times you haven't and it's your
yeah,
favorite pizza. So
yeah.
I don't know. It's there's
Yeah,
so many
I don't
nuances.
really agree with that either. I think it's a little, maybe that's happening if you're like in the initial stages of this work, but once you do get really confident, you'll
Hmm.
find wherever you go, whatever you do, you just eat till you feel fine.
Hmm.
And then the last little point, it says, if you've discovered what it feels like to feel comfortably full and yet feel that something is missing, it could be the satisfaction factor. So we did talk about that last week, where like for
Hmm.
me, if I do have dinner at home, especially if it's kind of a boring dinner, it's kind of like, it's fine. It's because we don't cook great meals every single night. Sometimes you just got to get a meal on for the family and eat it. I definitely like want something sweet after. But if I have if we say got takeout and I'm so full, I don't really need that like cap of a dessert. But that satisfaction factor, you really need to consider that, even if you're like, yeah, I'm technically full, but that meal wasn't that
Hmm.
satisfying. I want some dessert. That's not a bad thing. Like, just enjoy.
Yeah. You gotta go. You gotta go get that satisfaction, or else you're gonna be grazing for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Okay, we're moving on to the next principle. We'll get through it quickly, but it's an important one. So here we go. So principle 7 is cope with your emotions with kindness. So let's just give the little blurb. It's first, recognize that food restriction, both physically and mentally, can, in and of itself, trigger loss of control, which can feel like emotional eating. Find kind ways to comfort, nurture, distract, and resolve your issues. Anxiety, loneliness, boredom, and anger are emotions we all experience throughout life. Each has its own trigger and each has its own appeasement. Food won't fix any of these feelings. It may comfort for the short term, distract from the pain, or even numb you, but food won't solve the problem. You'll ultimately have to deal with the source of the emotion. So I think that's a good little blurb because it's true. Like food actually can't fix your problems. It definitely can make you feel better in the moment. So they're not saying it's bad or wrong to even emotionally eat in that moment. It's more of like, just know those problems aren't going to go away simply by just eating food every time you feel that emotion. So it's more of like, let's get underneath the surface. Let's work with these emotions. And yes, sometimes food is just going to be part of the equation, and that's okay. And most importantly, it's being kind to yourself
Mhm.
because when the judgment comes in, that is when everything kind of falls apart, especially with food, because then it becomes emotional, it becomes a restrict and binge cycle, it becomes food morality, it becomes everything once there's judgment involved. And with undieting and intuitive eating, really releasing that judgment is probably one of the most important factors in all of it. Because could you imagine if you just really released all of that? How would you be? Like, who would you be without all the judgment? And I'm pretty sure we'd all have a similar answer to that. So, food is love, food is comfort, food is reward, food is a reliable friend, and sometimes food becomes your only friend in moments of pain and loneliness. So, I like that line because they are describing food as yes, of course, food is love, it's pleasure, of course, it comforts you. Like, it could feel rewarding, it could feel all of those things. And the point of this is let's not make it the only thing that makes you feel comforted and become your only friend. I think that's what when Jenna and I describe emotional eating to our community, it's of course emotional eating is part of normal eating. It is. Like of course we eat with emotion. We are happy when we eat, we could be sad, we could be everything. Like humans are just emotional beings. So I would say anytime you're eating, you probably are experiencing a certain emotion, and that's okay. It's let's just not cover up every emotion with food. And there has to be other skills to use in order to get through these uncomfortable human emotions that sometimes just really suck.
Yep.
I must say. So I really don't want to like go into like every single emotion, and because we say this on throughout the whole series. It's like, if you really want to dive deeper, get the book so you can read every single thing in the whole chapter, because we're obviously not reading the entire book on all these episodes, but it really does. It talks about so many different emotions in here, and I think it's really great. But for the sake of a podcast, let's just kind of like get to more of the how to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so coping with emotional eating, there's four key steps to making food less important in your life. So the first thing to ask yourself is, am I biologically hungry? So if the answer is yes, your next step is to honor your hunger and eat. Of course, if you are biologically hungry, eat, eat, eat. If you are not hungry, you explore the next questions. So the next question, this is emotional eating. When you are emotional eating, you do not have biological hunger.
Yeah. So if I think the real clear point there is, if you're hungry and you're sad, it doesn't matter. You still eat.
Yeah. you are hungry.
Yeah.
So if you have biological hunger, the answer is to always eat. So next step, if you answer, I can actually tell my body does not feel hungry at all, but I have this desire to eat, to cope, to whatever it is. So the next question is, what am I feeling? So when you find yourself reaching for food when there's no biological hunger, take a time out to find out what you are really feeling. So of course, get the book and really go dive in, but things like you can write out your feelings, you can call somebody, you could talk through your feelings, talk to like a therapist, whatever. Of course, maybe in that moment it's like you can't call your therapist, but this is just work to work on. And I do want to say that sometimes the answer is the pint of ice cream. It is, and that's perfectly fine. This is more of like, you come to us and you're like, I do this every single day and it's a problem for me. Like, I'm finding it to be a problem. I can tell that I am not hungry, and every single day, it could be at any time of day. Typically, I think people like do it at nighttime, or I'm not sure. It's eating when you're not hungry and you were like, I'm so full. Why did I do that? I really didn't need that. So that's more what we're talking about, because sometimes it's like you had a rough day and you go through the drive-thru, or you go grab a donut, and that could be just so lovely, and move on. So if it's not that case, it's, what am I truly feeling? So then kind of like working through that. And then the third step is to ask yourself is, what do I need? So many people eat to fulfill some unmet need, which is related to the emotional or physical feeling being experienced. If you are a chronic dieter or chronically on some food plan, you can be particularly vulnerable. Eating to, get rid of an unmet need because you have an unmet need could just be the whole thing. So that's really something to really look at is, what do I need in this moment? Because maybe it could just be like, I am so tired. Like I literally just need to rest. And it's so, or frustration, like what, or anger, like let me get this out. Or I actually need to, I've been stuck in an office or in my house all day. I need to just get outside and walk. I can't breathe. Whatever it is, maybe it's just that. And you got to kind of explore different options. It doesn't have to just be all about the food. Food is a part of it though, because the second we're like, I can never emotionally eat, I can never eat when I'm not hungry, that gets dangerous. So we really want to be clear that like there's no judgment in emotional eating. Is it serving you? Is it working for you? And is it something that you would like to shift in your life? And if you're like, no, I actually feel really great about it. Like, yeah, I kind of eat emotionally every day, but I mean, it does not affect my life at all. Then You
And
probably wouldn't be talking about it.
explore as your motivation to stop that to lose weight though. Because someone might be
Yes.
like, oh yeah, well I do eat ice cream at night and it's when I feel stressed. And but it's like actually you're just having dessert. Like, and you're
Yeah.
trying to figure out a way to like beat the system, hack my brain so that I eat less. Like you really got to get clear in your intentions when trying to work
Yeah.
on emotional eating.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, we could do like probably like 10 episodes on emotional eating. So hopefully we're getting all the points in that like are very clear that this is not a diety thing and this is not a restrictive thing. This is like let's yes, check in with intentions and let's check in with feelings and how we can cope in other ways other than just covering it with food because that's there's no morality in that. But if you really want to get through problems or issues that you face, there's other work to be done and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like let's not use food and like let's actually get to the core issue. Okay, so the fourth step in this to ask yourself, it's called would you please, and basically what it's meaning is if you have so you may find yourself, so the example here, I don't want to read the whole paragraph, so I'm trying to like do some cliff notes. So the paragraph here is they give an example of a mom who, you know, is just always doing something, always with kids, like has no time to herself, like is just freaking out all the time. And then it's like when she actually gets a second to herself, she eats because that's just the only time she has to herself. So, but she found this was a client of the author's and she found herself saying, but I'm not hungry. Like I can tell it's like emotional eating. I'm not hungry. So the point of this was like what she really needs is I need to ask someone, if it's my partner or whoever it is who you can ask, like, would you please help me? I need your assistance and take the kids or please do this. I'm going to go or wherever, whatever you need to do for however long, I need your help. So would you please is like, what do you ask? You need to ask for help. And I think that's like such an important key piece to this is because you actually just need help when you're struggling with certain feelings. And it's so easy to just turn to food, but maybe it's like, wow, would you please help me? I'm going to go take a walk for 30 minutes out of the house where nobody is around grabbing at me or asking for something. Like that could be like life changing. So those are the 4 steps to really ask yourself and how to cope with emotional eating. So I feel like that was like it, yes, like the book kind of goes into like what can you do, and I think they're great things to say, like meeting your needs with kindness, and it shares how to do that, like you know, getting rest. That's like one of them. Seeking nurturance, so rest and relax, or watch a sunset, or take a yoga class, or what gives you like that nurturance. And there's all this list of stuff. Dealing with your feelings, right? You know, journal, call a friend, therapist, record your feelings in your phone, cry. Like that's amazing stuff. So that is, it's really just asking yourself, like, what are other ways I can cope when I have these feelings? Because these feelings will be coming back all often. You know, we're not just like human beings who can just heal through an emotion and then like, let's say you feel loneliness or anger and you heal through that or you transform a lot through that or you have an issue that you've actually you know really gotten through that was really hard. That doesn't mean you're never going to experience loneliness or anger ever again. Like that all emotions get to be just like honored and accepted as it's not like oh I've done that, I've gotten through that, I coped with that, so therefore I don't have to feel that emotion ever again. No, these emotions ebb and flow our entire life, just like happiness and joy and all the things that make us feel really good, those come and go too. So that's great, right? We don't want to like oh I was happy so therefore I never get to feel it again. Like
I've worked through that, I'm done.
yeah, exactly. So this is just kind of like an ongoing human experience, and we're
Well, and it's a
just
skill.
trying.
That's why you need a skill set in this. It's because
Yeah,
it
we're
is
just trying to
forever. It
navigate
is something
food.
that will come up all the time. This isn't something you just like deal with and it's done. However, I do believe once you heal your relationship with food, like food's a non-issue for me in any sort of emotional time. Like we were just talking about this before we started, but like if I'm super stressed, even if I'm depressed, like last summer I was pretty depressed, I was still just eating normally. Like, I don't know. It just, my relationship with food is so solid that it's just food that like, if I'm really down or really happy, it's still just food. So I just eat
Mm-hmm.
because I'm hungry. So I do think that gets easier and easier just as you're healing your relationship with food overall. But in the meantime, it might be like really big for you, and you just need to start learning skills on how to
Mm-hmm.
cope, and how to feel better. And like food is on the list, but it's not the only thing on the list. That's kind of the key.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like just even like allowing yourself to have the food if you want is like is an important step because most
Kindness,
likely,
right?
yeah, it's like oh yeah, sure, have the food. There's no morality, so go cope with that. Nothing wrong with it. And just having it as an option, you won't feel restricted by it, so you might not necessarily choose that every time. And you
Mm-hmm.
might choose it sometimes, and that's fine too. So it is, yeah. So there's so much more to say, but I don't want to make this
No,
podcast
I
like
think that's a
100 hours.
perfect. Yeah, I like the
But
four
yeah, I think
steps.
it's yeah, move with the 4 steps. And like Jenna was saying, as you become more um, just skilled and you get more years under in dieting and intuitive eating, you really just will watch it transform. And we've had many clients say like, oh, I used to cope with pizza, came home to have pizza, I had a hard day, and it just didn't work anymore. Like you'll tell that it doesn't, and it's not saying like, well, you're behind. It still works for you. It's just giving you more of like the
In time.
future, yeah, like in the future as you're working through this, you can get to a point where it just typically just doesn't work anymore. And I'm not even saying that feels very good because you were like, damn,
That was a
like
nice, quick tool.
I wish I could just go eat something and I will feel better. But now that you have this healed relationship with food, you realize, oh,
It's just
food is
food.
just like food is like something I can enjoy on the side, but it's not going to fix my problem. So just always approach food with kindness. So on just like the last note, once you learn new ways of coping, think about how food can continue to nurture you in a constructive way. Great.
Woohoo!
All right, we did it. We'll be back next week with number, what are we on? 8 and 9.
Yes,
We'll do
we'll
8, 9,
hammer
and
out 8,
10.
9, 10. Yeah, next
Yeah,
week.
we'll just
And
because like the series is great, but I could tell it's like we're getting through 10 principles. So I
yeah,
think this is good basic information, and we're gonna get through all the principles in the next episode, and then we'll move
yeah,
on to our own little episodes.
yeah.
Um,
So thank you
yeah,
for
so
joining us so much. We have loved this little series just to get back to the basics and remind ourselves
mhm,
of like what's at the core of this work. Because these women documented this, right? This is not a thing made up. This is the documentation of how eating works when we get out of diet culture. So it's a great
mhm.
reminder whether you're just starting or well on your way. Another great tool, of course, the Undiet Your Mind app is available. We have a special workshop coming this month. You'll hear about it if you are on our email list or follow us on Instagram. We will be sharing about this workshop that's included in your membership. So you can join now for $4.99 and get this awesome workshop from a really special expert. We'll be sharing about it soon, and all the content and the meditations and movement classes and so much. So you can get that 50% off for only $4.99 with the code TBLS. And you can do that by joining at undietyourmind.app.
That's right. And we have one more spot in this month for private coaching if anybody is looking for that. Okay, we will leave now. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.